Anne, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to call our meeting to order at 1:04. Apologize for the 4 minutes. We had a little bit of a glitch here. Welcome, council and staff. You're a good bunch. Now, if we can just have the proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. And if we could have the roll call, please.
Mayor Clarkson, are you present?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Windover?
Present.
Councillor Armstrong?
Present?
Councillor Franzen?
Yep.
Councillor Lambshead?
Present.
For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CIO Treasurer.
Present.
Adele Arbor, Temporary Manager of Building and Planning.
Present.
Anne Ruth, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Allison Martin, Planning Administrator.
Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services Clerk, is present.
Thank you. Now we're going to have a moment of reflection. There's been lots going on in the country and around the world the last few days, so I think we can all reflect on whatever is important to us. Thank you. I'd like to get it in the minutes how much we appreciate the community stepping up to get the vaccinations done. Because in speaking with people, people are going to quite large extents to book their appointments. It isn't easy, but we certainly appreciate people going forward. And the numbers certainly reflect the fact that we now know that the vaccination is what's going to get us back to as normal as we're going to get. So to everybody concerned, thank you for taking the time and protecting yourself and everybody around you. Now, at this time, I'm going to remind council and members of council of their obligation to declare pecuniary interest that they may have now or at any time during the future. If I have a motion to approve the agenda, Deputy Mayor Windover, Councillor Lambshead, all in favor? Thank you. We need to adopt the minutes of a special county meeting for June the 1st, regular council meeting for June the 1st, and a special council meeting of June the 5th. Motion, please. Councillor Franzen and Councillor Armstrong. And that motion is carried.
Just call for the vote.
Oh, all in favor? Motion is carried. Minutes and reports from committees and boards. Do we have, and also the liaison reports for council members and committees. Does anyone in the council have a report for either the EDAC, PRCAC, Police Services Board, or the Library Board? Nope. Okay, hearing none. Thank you. Statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act. Now we need a motion to suspend the regular meeting. Deputy Mayor Windover, Councillor Lambshead, all in favor? Motion has carried. Now, Allison, we'll get you to introduce this file, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, this is a public meeting under Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider an amendment to the municipality's zoning bylaw B 2014-070. A notice of public meeting for today's application containing the prescribed information was circulated to all landowners within a 120-meter radius of the subject lands at least 20 days prior to this meeting. The notice was also mailed to all prescribed agencies, public bodies, and persons in accordance with the regulations. Anyone wanting to be notified of any decision from today's public meeting must send in a written request to myself or the clerk, and the notice of passing will be mailed to them, setting out the method and manner in which appeals may be made to the Ontario Land Tribunal, or OLT. Please note that if a person does not send a written comment prior to the passing of the bylaw or make an oral submission at the public meeting, that person may not be entitled to appeal the decision. This is a public meeting for file number 2109 to consider a zoning bylaw amendment submitted by agent Kevin Duguay on behalf of owners Robert and Gregory White of British Empire Fuels for a vacant lot with no municipal address located on County Road 36. The vacant land on County Road 36 has a lot area of 10 hectares and is currently zoned development with a holding provision. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the property to General Industrial 1 to classify the additional lands in the same zone category as the existing British Empire Fuels industrial operations. This zoning bylaw amendment is a condition of consent for land severance, file number B2520, which will permit a lot addition resulting in a vacant and undeveloped property to be added to the existing industrial property, British Empire Fuels, known municipally as 41 County Road 36. In order for the lots to be severed, the condition of consent application must be met. There is a planning report on the agenda from the municipality's planning consultant, Chris Jones. His report states that the application is generally consistent with the provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. At the time of this meeting, the municipality has received one comment from the Kawartha Region Conservation Authority, who have no concern with the application. The agent for the application, Kevin Duguay, is available on the line to answer any questions should the public or council have any. Thank you.
Okay, do we hear any questions? Kevin, this has been going on for quite a while. Is this nearing the end for these people? I know I've had some contact that they're concerned with the length of time, and I know these things take time. But is this close to the end of it for them?
Mayor Clarkson, Council, I assume you're able to hear me, yes?
Yes.
Yep.
Great, thank you. And we are, to your query, Mayor Clarkson, this is the second last step in the proposed expansion of British Empire Fuel property. So we've already secured the provisional consent for lot addition. The zoning applications required to the lot addition lands have the same zoning as that of the existing property, and then there will be a site plan application. We'd be amending the existing site plan agreement to reflect the additional lands as depicted on the screen. Lastly, the residual part of their property, excluding the subject lands and excluding the recent severed commercial property, that's been set aside for a future plan of subdivision, and I can advise council that we'll be in a position to file that application in early fall of 2021. So we're looking at an infill subdivision on the balance of the access from the interior road on the opposite side of the property towards its west, and that application is forthcoming. And we've been working closely with your staff, county, throughout this process. I'm available for any questions. I must, however, acknowledge Allison's contributions and help behind the scenes. She has been very prompt, very efficient, and most helpful in her assistance with processing of this file. So thank you, Allison. I'm available to respond to any questions.
Well, I'm sure everybody on the call appreciates Allison. I think most of us have had really good reports. So thank you, Kevin. That just is it's a good recommendation from somebody with your qualifications.
You're welcome.
Anybody else questions concerning this property? Okay, thank you very much. Now we need a motion to reconvene the regular meeting. Councillor Lambshead, Councillor Armstrong, all in favor. Motion is carried. Business arising from a statutory public meeting. Allison, would you like to speak to file 2109?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, there was a public meeting held today for file number 2109. At this time, staff are recommending that council defer approval of the zoning bylaw amendment pending the delivery of a new reference plan. Thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion for this, do we? Deputy Mayor Windover? Councillor Brent, Lambshead. Why do I do this? You would like to change your name, would you? That would take time. We can't be doing this. All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, now we're going to have a presentation from Stephanie McPherson, CEO of the Trent Lakes Public Library, regarding a library update. Please unmute your audio and share your camera and make your presentation. You will have 20 minutes. I'll ask council that all questions are saved until the end of this presentation.
Good morning to you, Madam. Good morning, Council.
Today, I would just like to give you a brief update about the library services that are being offered to the community at this time. We go to the next slide. Thank you. Most of our services right now are being delivered through curbside pickup at both branches. Right now through the Buckhorn branch from Tuesday until Saturday, which would be our normal hours, and Cavendish on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And starting the beginning of July, we'll move that up to Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays in Cavendish. We are limited to the services that we are being able to provide according to the Ontario Roadmap to Reopening. And this is the list of the things that we are offering right now through curbside pickup or through over the telephone and online. These will be the services that will be continue to offer until step 2, at which point we'll be allowed to have community members enter the library for browsing at a limited capacity. During the pandemic, we've relied a lot on e-resources, especially during the beginning of it when we were closed. And so I just did a couple graphs here so that you could see how our circulation has been increasing. The first graph has the circulation through January to May when I did the graph. And you can see in 2020 and 2021, our circulation of ebooks and audiobooks continue to grow. This is not just because of COVID. Another aspect of this is that our neighboring libraries with whom we have a reciprocal borrowing agreement changed platforms, and a lot of their patrons preferred the original platform, and so they got cards at Trent Lakes. So this is great for our statistics and allows us to help more people. One of the other things that I was interested in is the ebooks versus audiobooks and how they're circulated. You can see the purple here are the audiobooks and the green is the ebooks. So obviously the audiobooks are a lot fewer, but they're also 3 times the price. So we don't purchase quite as many as we do the ebooks. This is our projected numbers for 2021. And I actually believe this is quite low projection. In order to get those numbers, I took the average from January until May, divided by 5 and multiplied it by 12. So that does not take into account the summer numbers when people have their holidays and are more likely to be reading or listening to audiobooks. So I actually think that for 2021, we'll get our ebooks and audiobook circulation past the 8,000 mark, hopefully. To help our community deal with the pandemic, the library has added a number of new e-resources to our system that are available to the public. This is to try to help with all of the kids who are having to do their schoolwork from home, and as well as all of the parents who are working from home and need reliable information. And this way they know where they can turn and they don't just have to rely on Google. So here's the list of all of the different databases that we offer through Trent Lakes. So in order to help, not necessarily replace, but instead of offering the in-person story time that we have every week, we have been offering take-home activity kits. So we've been offering these all year, and these are just a couple examples of the ones that we have done. One of my favorites was when we partnered with Trent Lakes Fire and Rescue, and we offered a bag of different activities that highlighted what the library does as well as what the fire department does here, and that was quite popular. You can see we also have Father's Day, Mother's Day. We did a spring activity, and part of that was through the Grain Farmers of Ontario, and they provided the plants and the supplies so that kids could start growing plants at home. And so these are just some of the ones that we have done. Here's a list of the future kits that we will provide. This week is the final week of our Father's Day activities, and next week we start the Canada Day, and then they change every 2 weeks. And you can see on the graph there how the popularity of these kits have continued to grow. And then the other thing that we're quite excited about here at the library is that we're running 2 different summer reading programs this year. So the first one is the Summer Reading Challenge. So we have different different options that the kids will read. We have 10 different things that they need to do in order to complete this sheet. And so it encourages kids to read and to think about what they're reading as well. And then if they complete all 10 challenges in July and August, they'll be entered into a draw for a local business. So in Buckhorn, the draw will be for a gift certificate to Pizza Loro, and in Cavendish, the gift certificate will be for the Catch. So we're help supporting local business as well as encouraging kids to read. And then the second, oh, sorry, one more. The second thing that we're doing there is a reading log. So for every 20 minutes that they either read or they're read to, they can color in a sun. And if they complete the entire sheet in 1 month, then we have some prizes to give for them at the library. And that will also be available at both branches. All right. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Council, any questions? Terry?
Not a question, but it's you're being very inventive as to how to contact and keep kids and people going to the library in a virtual way. I think that's fantastic. Thank you very much to you and all your staff, Stephanie.
Thank you, Terry. I think that this has been a great challenge, and a lot of the things that we have been offering are things I think we will continue to offer. The curbside is great for people who cannot necessarily come in, or they're just feeling under the weather. Being able to continue to offer that, I think, will continue beyond the pandemic.
Deputy Mayor Window.
I just want to say, keep up the good work, so.
Thank you.
Councilor Armstrong?
Yes, thank you. Some great initiatives that you and your staff have put together, staff, so thanks for that. Just a little plug here. I honestly think there should be a seniors reading program. For those of us who are in a different age category, not by choice. Yeah, not by choice.
Really?
But anyway, I just throw that out as an idea, not that you don't have enough to do already.
Well, that's a great idea. Thank you, Carol.
Stephanie, in libraries in populations, because I imagine you probably know roughly what the population is you serve, how is your usership as compared to? Are there any statistics like that anywhere?
Yes, ours is a little different. Our usership is significantly higher than the provincial average because we have the cottagers coming in. They use the usership based on your permanent population, but with the cottagers, ours it's significantly more. And we also have reciprocal borrowing agreements with other libraries. And so even though they don't count as our permanent population, they're still card holders. And so it's normally, most libraries I think have about 20-25% usership, and ours is over 100%. So we do quite well, and I get asked by people from the ministry and other libraries how ours is so high, but it just happens to be because of our specific demographic and our population.
Now, I understood a year or so ago that the government had pulled out funding for libraries to do transfer books from one to the other, but it sounds like you were still doing that.
Now we have to pay for postage for it.
Okay.
That before it was done weekly, and there was one, it was all done through the Southern Ontario Library Service, which has now merged and is now just the Ontario Library Service. And they sort of initiated everything, whereas now it's all done through Canada Post. In previous years, we have been reimbursed at least partially for some of the costs, but that's not something that we can rely on every year.
Okay, so it's not a pay as you play, like the customer doesn't pay for that?
No, no, not at all.
Okay.
The library absorbs that money.
You absorb that cost.
Yes, we do have them sign a waiver that if they do not pick up the book that they have ordered through the other library system, that they will pay a $5 processing fee. So as long as they pick up the book that they've ordered, there's no fee at all to the patron.
So then what's the time frame for sending those back to where they came from?
We ask It depends on the library. We ask for 3 weeks, which is our normal turnaround time. Some libraries will give us up to 3 months. Other libraries stick with the 3 weeks. However, libraries do not charge other libraries late fees.
Okay.
And so you know, we just try to get it back to be respectful, and so that other libraries will send us books as well.
So do you pay to send them back as well as pay to get them?
We pay to send them out. So if we are loaning our books, then we pay to send them out to the other library. If we're borrowing the books, we pay to return them. I should mention that we do get a discounted rate, that Canada Post has a special rate for libraries to send books to other libraries. So it's not as costly as if I were to send a book to you know, a friend or somebody. It is cheaper. It's much cheaper.
Now, do you have a full complement of volunteers?
Right now, we do not have libraries in the library because of the pandemic, but we're hoping pretty soon in the fall we can start having the volunteers back, and then we'll have to do an assessment of who has been able and who feels comfortable returning, and we'll have to go from there. But I know we have heard from a number of volunteers that they are looking forward to coming back.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much for your presentation and for the hard work that you do down there. You are valuable to this community.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now if we can have a motion to accept this presentation. Deputy Mayor Windover, Councillor Franzen, all in favor? Thank you. Now you can be removed from the meeting, but you can log back in if you wish to listen to the remainder. We will now have a presentation from Chris Kowalek, Community Development Program Manager of the City of Peterborough, regarding the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. This is the interim report. Please unmute your audio and/or share your camera and make your presentation. You will have 20 minutes. Again, Council, if you would hold your questions till the end. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Mayor Clarkson and members of council. Thanks for having me back again this month to talk about the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. As I mentioned last month, I'm here today looking for your support for the interim report that we've prepared to submit to the Ministry of the Solicitor General. Next slide, please. There's some duplicate information in this presentation from the one I did last month, so I'm going to go over it relatively quickly. I just wanted it in here for the record that, you know, all municipalities are required to adopt a community safety and well-being plan by the deadline of July 1st, 2021. Locally, we have agreed to a city, county, township joint plan, and this interim plan is a high-level plan that we are submitting for the deadline, knowing that we are not meeting the requirements of the province. There are a number of other municipalities across the province that are in the same situation that we are. Our goal has changed somewhat from my previous presentation through input from our advisory committee and after review by the senior admin staff here at the city. We've pushed it a little bit further back to spring 2022 for our goal to submit the full plan to the province. And as I mentioned, just to round out our current status, the advisory committee has been formed. We've met twice, met yesterday, and we're looking at, we've developed a bit of a work plan and how we're going to push activities forward. Next slide, please. This is something I spoke about at the last meeting, just as a refresher. You know, community safety and well-being plans. Planning involves taking an integrated approach to service delivery by working across a wide range of sectors, agencies, and organizations to proactively develop and implement evidence-based strategies and programs to address local priorities related to crime, complex social issues on a sustainable basis. So that's right out of the guidelines, and I did cover that last time. Next slide, please. Again, I identified this as well last time. This is part, and I mentioned it 2 more times in my presentation, about We will be identifying risk factors, around crime, victimization, discrimination, other issues that are affecting each municipality, which may be different between the city and the county and the townships. And we will be working to identify those, prioritizing them, and then identifying strategies to reduce those top priority risk factors that the advisory committee puts into the plan for council's approval. And certainly setting out ways of measuring those moving forward. Next slide, please. You may remember this circle graph just around the levels of intervention that we'll be building the plan around and relating to, as far as social development interventions, prevention, risk interventions, and emergency responses. Somehow this will be built into the plan, as far as indicating which actions relate to which level of intervention. Next slide, please. So right now, our local approach, and again, this is very high level, and I'll mention this now, that in our plan, in the interim plan, we're not asking for council's commitment. There are no commitments being made in the interim report. It's a very high level report that's showing where we are right now and some of the areas that we're working on. So we formed the advisory committee. We're going to be collecting relevant data locally, whether it's through existing plans, looking at local assets, like the different boards and committees that exist, different police boards that have been discussing this plan, looking at local data, whether it be StatsCan information, crime information, all levels of data that we'll be searching for. We are members of the local data consortium, and certainly getting advice from the advisory committee. In the interim report, you'll notice on page 8 the list of the advisory committee members. So we do have quite a number of experts in their various areas. Community consultation, we don't have a strategy developed yet. We certainly have an inventory of things that we could be using, whether it's public meetings. We'll certainly be having an online survey, whether we're where we are in the pandemic and restrictions come later in the summer and into the fall, where we stand, whether we can meet in person, having open houses or roundtable discussions or workshops. We're going to look into that, at what we can practically do, whether it's in person or virtually, to receive community consultation. Certainly each of the townships have their own means of collecting information and community input, whether it be through your website, through social media, through newsletters, or your tax bills, or whatever it may be. We'll be certainly relying on Susan Jacket is your member on the advisory committee, that we work collaboratively to consult with Trent Lakes residents. And as I mentioned, identifying and selecting risk factors, developing strategies to address those risk factors, and creating measurable outcomes. Next slide, please. So we have used the community well-being plan that was received and developed back in 2019. These are the 7 key themes that were identified in that report, and the advisory committee chose to use those appropriately, I think, to build this interim report. So looking at environmental stewardship, democratic and community engagement, good jobs, safety, safe and healthy communities, housing, income and poverty, and transportation. You'll see those in the interim report with a listing of issues that we are examining. So those issues were received from the advisory committee and information that already existed in the community well-being plan. So again, those are issues are being discussed, not making commitments at this point that all of those will, I can tell you not all of them will be in the eventual report, but just showing the scope at this point, at this early stage of the advisory committee that we're at, what sort of things are being considered. Next slide, please. So our next step And again, this is kind of reiterating other steps that I've mentioned in other slides around collecting then analyzing data, aligning with other plans and assets, doing community consultation, looking at the risk factors, prioritizing, developing strategies and measurable outcomes. So that's the framework for our work plan. Next slide, please. Happy to answer any questions council may have for me.
Okay, council, do I see hands? Yes, Carol.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. One comment, one question. The comment is just to thank Susan Jacket, who is in our emergency services department, for sitting on that committee. This is a huge amount of work. This is what we call an elephant sandwich. But the question is, I understand we'll be submitting a plan in spring of 2022. Has the province set out any kind of timeline for implementation? Because if I understand it, the plan will be basically, here are the strategies and actions we'd like to implement, and by then you may have gotten approval, not sure. And here are the measurements we will apply, but obviously it takes time to implement all of that. And I'm wondering if the province has set out a timetable for that.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, they expect the plans to be implemented right after councils approve them, for municipalities to be working on. There are many municipalities in the province that do have these plans done, and some have already submitted them, and many will meet that July 1st deadline of this year. And it will be the expectation that they will be, as we will be after the spring of 2022, working on implementation. It's important to note that province isn't supplying any funding for that implementation. On one of my earlier slides, you may have noticed, they're looking at us to be creative, looking across sectors, breaking down silos between organizations so that we look at service delivery differently first. However, like I said, the province is expecting these to be done in collaboration with our police forces to address some of the issues in crime that are plaguing all of our communities. But that for us will be sometime in spring of next year. And then, don't mean to belabor this, but the expectation so far is for these plans to be renewed on a 4-year cycle.
Great, thank you very much. It sounds like 2022 will be a busy year.
Chris, a couple of questions I have. I'm getting calls from people who are looking for laborers. Now, these are construction people who are looking for people, but they're also homeowners who are looking for people to come in and do general jobs, grass cutting, that type of thing that would fall more into students. Is there any kind of a assistance that you can give? Because the call I got this morning was, where do I go to find out? Well, we don't have that in our own website. We used to have the jobs fair in the spring, which looked after some of it, but there should be a go-to website somewhere that people can match, because there is a tremendous shortage of laborers. Some of it, there's maybe an excuse for just the fact that there's been subsidies out there, but I think there's quite a bit of it. It's just people are not matched to each other as well. So I'm looking for that. The other thing I'm wondering, Kevin Monaghan is moving ahead with tiny homes to try to solve some of the homeless problems. I would be interested in knowing where you stand on that, because it seems to me that it's a really good option, but what are the drawbacks?
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, on your first point, I would reach out, and I can, if you like, to Peterborough Corps Economic Development to see what information they have about, labor imbalances or labor challenges that each municipality might be having or is aware of. There is also, the Employment Ontario has refocused its resources, and Fleming College is managing all employment services at this time. I don't know what tools or mechanisms or incentives they may have at this time, but as far as a homeowner or resident looking for some type of labor, I know seniors would have a special in with community care, or someone like Nightingale who offers these services on a fee for service, depending on what kind of work they're looking for. But my first call would likely be to Peterborough Kawartha Economic Development, depending on what the type of work you're referring to. If it's just home maintenance or plumbing or general contracting or what it may be.
Okay, I know we get the presentations concerning what the statistics are, but not any mechanics in terms of how you actually go in and try to find somebody. And I guess that's what I'm looking at. Maybe the township has to develop some sort of a website with information there. But there certainly are a lot of young people that need work, but we've got to match them somehow. Okay, thank you, Chris. Anybody else, questions?
Yeah, I just have one comment and question. I think one of the most important things we have in this entire area is affordable housing. I mean, when a starter home is selling for $460,000, what chance do young people have? Where do we find our day laborers? Where do we find employees to work in construction? There's no way they can afford these kinds of homes. And a healthy community isn't a community of primarily 65 plus, because the only people that can afford the new homes and the subdivisions and condominiums that are in this area are generally 65 plus.
Who've sold a home in the city to come here,
Exactly,
which goes back to the tiny homes.
Mhm.
exactly. That's what we need, is more affordable housing.
Okay, is everybody, Councilor Lamson?
Yeah, I just have a comment about the community safety and well-being plan. It's an enormous amount of work that everyone is undertaking, and it's going to be very interesting how the financial end of this is going to shake out. I mean, some of these services are being offered by many different services now, but in the future, we may be facing some very interesting budgetary items. And thank you for all the work you're doing, Chris.
Well said, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, if everybody's finished, we need a motion to accept this.
If I could,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
You're in school. You can
That's
put your hand up.
It's your meeting. I have been providing a resolution for councils to approve. I was at Havelock Belmouth Union and North Kawartha councils this morning, and I just circulated it. It wasn't in time for this council meeting. I don't know if you want me to read it out as a potential option for you to pass as a resolution, unless I can. I don't know how to share my screen in WebEx, but I can read it out if you like.
Please.
So this is just a sample that whereas municipalities are required under the Police Services Act 1990 to adopt community safety and well-being plan, and whereas all municipalities in the city and county of Peterborough are working with a multi-sectoral advisory committee to develop a community safety and well-being plan, therefore be it resolved that the interim report of the community safety and well-being plan be endorsed with the goal of completing a full plan in spring 2022.
Okay. Now, you don't want to, you're just letting us know what this is. You don't need an endorsement at this time, or do you?
We do. You need to endorse this plan if you want to meet the July 1st deadline, which is the purpose of this interim report, is so that Trent Lakes and all other municipalities locally have something to show the province that we are working on this. We started very late, but to let them know that we are working on this plan, and we do have a plan to get it completed, albeit late in the spring of 2022.
Okay, so do we have a Councilor Francis?
I'd make that a motion.
Okay, and seconder would be Councilor Lambshead. All in favor? Okay, you've got your motion. All right, Now we need a motion to accept this presentation.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, I'm going to include that in the resolution that was passed.
Okay, so that part of it's done now?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for your presentation. You're now going to be removed from the meeting, but you can log back in if you wish to.
Thank you. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. So delegations, none. Staff reports, recreation and facilities. Donna, do you want to give a brief report for the meeting we had yesterday, or would you save that for a later meeting?
Sorry, through you. The meeting in Buckhorn?
Yeah.
I would suggest we leave that for a further meeting. There was
Okay.
some follow-up
All
from
right.
that meeting, so thank you.
Fire and emergency services, none. Building and planning, Allison, consent application, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. On today's agenda is a municipal appraisal form for consent files B3819 and B3919 for owners Edmund and Constantino Duarte. The subject lands are located in part of lots 13 and 14, concession 9 and Harvey. This is an application to create 2 new lots and 1 retained lot. There is a memo on today's agenda from the municipality's external planning consultant, Chris Jones, that is not supportive of the application and recommends that council does not support the application. The consultant is of the opinion that the 2 new lots would not provide adequate building envelopes, and further that the proposal to close the road allowance does not provide enough information regarding how much of the road allowance would be closed and conveyed, and does not address how the existing traveled road would be formalized and registered for the benefit of other landowners who rely on it for access. However, since posting the council agenda, staff have received correspondence from the Duarte's agent, William Lowcock, who has submitted an amended application which combines the currently proposed north and south lot into one, which is something that staff are able to support. Staff are currently recommending that council defer the application so that staff are able to review the revised submission. Thank you.
Okay, so should we have a motion for this then, for the deferral? Councillor Limestad, or Councillor Frenzen, sorry. Deputy Mayor Windover, seconder. All in favor? Thank you. Finance, Donna Taggart, please.
So through you, before you is the accounts payable for the month of May.
Can we have a motion, please? Deputy Mayor Windover. Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? That motion is carried. Again, administration, Donna, parking bylaw enforcement.
So thank you through you. Council directed staff at the March 16th, 2021 meeting to come back or to investigate a mechanism for bylaw enforcement and the issuance of prosecution of Part 2 parking tickets on county and municipal roads. And as council are aware, there have been lots of discussions in the past regarding safety on some of the roads, some of the county roads in particular with illegal parking. So I have attached to this report a report prepared by the County of Peterborough. And at this time, they're looking in 2021 to do an enforcement education and warning campaign. They have hired a bylaw enforcement officer for that. And they are investigating joining the City of Peterborough's AMP system, so the administrative penalty system, and we'll look to do that next year. So they did receive support from County Council in principle to do that. So just as a reminder, the County of Peterborough did provide Trent Lakes with the authority to write tickets in September of 2016. But in fact, we were unable to do that based on the ability to do the Part 2 offense tickets and the third-party bylaw enforcement agency having that step to enforce or trial proceedings. So we have had discussions at this level as well with the City of Peterborough and looking at joining their AMP system as well, and have had discussions with the county pertaining to bylaw in future years and maybe doing some joint bylaw enforcement as well. So this is for council information, just to let you know that there will be an education campaign through the county and the municipal staff this year. And we have given those information tickets in the past. We've done about 200 of those between 2018 and 2020. And we're also investigating the use of some paid duty police officers at the Sandy Lake Beach. Unfortunately,
We weren't able to do that this past weekend. There wasn't enough staff at the OPP to do that, but we will investigate that in the future and just have a commitment of the county to partner in on initiatives in order to come up with solutions for the parking issues at the various sites.
Okay, questions? So where does that leave us this year, Donna? Because you've seen the pictures. Sandy Lake is that's an accident waiting to happen.
Mhm.
So where are we now? I mean, warning tickets are not going to phase those people one little bit.
So through you, so for this year, we would be unable to issue tickets or tow because we need that partnership with the city of Peterborough in using their AMP system. And they aren't ready for us to join into that yet. They're still in the testing phase of that. So we will have to sign an agreement with them. So for this year, it will be the combination of the information tickets, but it's also, we've had discussions, very good discussions with the OPP that they'll try to send officers by there as much as possible. I know there were some issues this past weekend again. There's definitely people continuing to park on the road. And the Kawartha Guard, which is the organization that the County of Peterborough have hired to take drive-bys as well. But yes, until we have that ability to have that third-party enforcement, we continue to struggle in being able to write tickets and tow.
So if you put no parking signs up, it means nothing?
Well, essentially, yes, at this time through you, we are unable to enforce those without the ability, because if someone were to appeal a ticket, they need to be able to go to court, and there needs to be a process in place to allow that. And that's what we're trying to get formalized. To do it internally would be the staff involved, the resources would be way too much in order for us to do that. There's additional training that would be required, and the city of Peterborough would be the best choice for that. So other than continuing we did a media blitz this past, a partnership with the other lower tiers in the county and the OPP, trying to get, and I know Dr. Salvatierra announced it at her media scrum as well, trying to get the word out as much as possible through our partnerships with other organizations and just continuing to write tickets, and that are obviously our information type tickets.
Councillor Lampstead?
Yeah, and this process now will give us the opportunity to give a ticket if we get on the AMP system anywhere in our municipality and have a way to enforce it, a penalty, and a way for the person that's getting ticketed to defend themselves. So I think that's all very important pieces of this puzzle, and it takes a little time to get this all together. Unfortunately,
We were
we're a
having
little
the
bit
same
behind.
discussion this time last year.
Mhm.
That's what bothers me.
Yeah.
So then if, like out here, for instance, we've got no parking handicapped, does that mean people can disregard any of those things because we can't issue tickets for anything?
So through you, at this time, we would be unable to. That's correct.
Wow. Councillor Armstrong?
Thank you, through Natalie. Two questions. One about the immediate Sandy Beach situation. Can the OPP not issue tickets?
So through you, the OPP cannot, because the proper bylaw is not in place through the county that will allow, it's all connected.
Got
So
it.
the only thing the OPP could write tickets for is people being too close together. So COVID type charges through social distancing and,
Right.
yes.
Okay,
And they
thank you.
definitely can warn people.
So you can
Which
park
they're
halfway
doing,
out
yeah.
on the road and you don't get a ticket, but if you stand beside somebody, you can get a ticket. Come on.
And the second question regarding the AMP system, I assume that we will have an opportunity to look at what that process will be before we move forward. For example, whether it be a separate appeal committee here as well as the city, et cetera, et cetera. So those details will come back to us before next spring, hopefully, so we can review those and move ahead on it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, we will bring it back. The agreement is just kind of for us as well in principle to proceed and have those discussions with the city, and we'll come back to council with particulars. Yes.
Thank you.
So then Donna, last spring or last summer, when the parking got so bad up at the Mississauga Dam, up where people run, and the OPP put no parking on that. Is that provincial? Is there a difference in where you are? Because they stopped all of that.
So through you, I'm not aware of the circumstances on that one. I'm not aware. I know if it's a county or municipal road, there can't be tickets that are written at this time, but I don't know if that's something different. I'm not aware of that one.
Okay. Councillor Francis?
I just had a question with Andy. The parking lot is open now, though?
Yes, through you, it is. All
Okay.
the lots are open. Yes.
Yeah. So that should alleviate some of the issues with Sandy Beach.
Yes.
I thought when that problem was up at the up the bridge at the Mississauga, I thought they'd done something about that.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know how they did it, but they stopped it.
They sure stopped it anyway. They stopped that parking.
Yeah.
But it was
I'm
wild.
not
Yeah.
sure.
Anyway, Donna, thank you. I understand that's all you can do about it, but we've got to somehow or other push the county and the city to get on with this because say this is year on and you know, people are getting crazier and crazier.
Mhm.
Okay, so we need a motion to accept that presentation. Deputy Mayor Windover, Councillor Lamshead.
Could we just
I
clarify? Yes,
just, yeah,
just clarify.
yeah, I need to know what the motion is because
I think the motion is to accept that report. Is that right, Donna?
So through you, yes, it's to accept the report, but it's also to direct staff to have discussions with the city of Peterborough to join into their AMP system and to proceed with information and the warning campaign type tickets for 2021.
Okay.
And actually, just to follow up, Chelsea was kind enough to just text me. That is a Parks Canada property, so that was enforcement through them that you're talking about.
Okay, okay, all right. So
Yeah.
Ron, do you want to make that motion?
Yeah.
With
what
that?
she said, yeah.
What she said? Okay. Councillor Lamshead.
I will
you want-
second the motion if this is the motion that council receives the parking bylaw enforcement report from the CAO treasurer for information purposes and further that council directs staff to join the city of Peterborough's administrative penalty system subject to council's final approval and further that council directs staff to proceed with and continue with the information and warning campaign for 2021.
That's exactly what you meant.
Very good. That's,
Yep.
yeah, good question.
All in favor? Thank you. And Ruth, an award for a supply installation of chain link fence and electrify it.
Thank you.
Are
Through
you
you,
there?
Mayor. Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clarkson to Council, tender T-02-2021 for the supply and installation of chain link fencing at Sandy Beach was posted on April 22nd and closed on May 26th. 2 bids were received by the specified closing date in accordance with the provisions of the tender, and those bids were reviewed for compliance. Staff are recommending award of the tender to the lowest compliant bidder, being Ball Pro Construction. Thank you.
And do we know what that amount was? No, I just wanted for the video.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, the financial implications are $36,337.18, $35,708.64 plus HST adjusted to reflect our actuals.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to accept that tender? Councillor Franson, Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? Carried. Okay, Anne Ruth, council expenses for May.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clarkson, this report brings forward council expenses submitted for the month of May and the remainder of expenses submitted for March and April for council's consideration and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I have a motion, please?
I
Councillor
will make a
Lamshead?
motion to approve that and thank our deputy clerk very kindly for all of her assistance in getting me to doing this electronically. Thank you, Ann.
3 months, eh?
Okay, seconded by Councillor Franson, all in favor? The motion is carried. Jesse, Director of Corporate Services. Additional funds for strategic plan.
Thank you. Through you, a request for quotation was issued for the facilitation and development of a strategic plan based on priority 10 from Council's strategic priorities, and $10,000 was included in the 2021 budget to perform this work. In order to meet the requirements of the purchasing policy, the municipality invited 5 companies to submit a quotation in an attempt to obtain 3. 2 bids were received, both of which were in excess of the approved budget for the project. The bids were evaluated, factoring in both the proposal elements and pricing. And upon review of the bids, staff are recommending proceeding with Strategy Corp as the company that best meets the operational needs of the municipality, subject to additional funds in the amount of $14,763.35 would be required to proceed with this award.
Okay, do I see a motion or do I see a motion with a question? Councillor Armstrong?
I guess I have to make a motion before I comment. My motion would be to defer this until the next term of council, because we're so late at this stage in this council's term, and we go into a lame duck period in less than a year. I think that the money would be better spent if we defer it until the first term, which I guess is 2023, hard to imagine, of the next council. So my motion is simply to defer this until the next term of council.
Councillor Lambshead?
I will second that motion with a comment.
Okay.
I feel it is very presumptuous of us to spend that kind of money on a strategic plan when the next council may be relatively different ideas for their strategic plans. So I do concur with Councillor Armstrong.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? It's been first and second, and that is carried. Thank you. Park Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee vacancy.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clarkson. Due to a recent resignation, there's a vacancy on the Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee. The report outlines the vacancies since the beginning of the term, the number of applications and the number of appointments, which shows that the municipality has experienced significant volunteer turnover and is receiving a very low response rate. This time, a new appointment may not be the best option to support the PRCAC in achieving their work plan objectives for the remainder of the term. Staff have discussed this possibility with the chair of the PRCAC, who is supportive of this recommendation. In support of this, there is a bylaw on today's agenda to approve the amended terms of reference.
Okay, do we have a motion to support that?
I'll support them.
Councillor Franzen, Deputy Mayor Wendover, all in
I'd
favor?
like to comment.
Yes, please.
PRCAC has a number of very active and established subcommittees for each of their areas of focus. So I think that they can carry out the balance of their work through this term using the power of the subcommittees quite adequately. And so I too would support the motion.
And I have a comment, and that is that we should look at some of these as going to evening meetings, because I think the daytime meeting makes it very, very difficult to get pertinent volunteers. Okay, motion to approve that. Councillor Armstrong, I've said motion for everybody, I guess. All in favor? Motion, that motion is carried. Okay, correspondence for information. Does anybody want to pull any of these out? Okay, can we have a motion to accept the group of them then, please?
I will make
Councillor
that
Armstrong?
motion with a little comment, is that there's a lot of things in here that are very relevant to us all. We've seen these many times before and we've supported most of these. So it's not that we're just brushing through these. We are looking at them all and we've supported many of these. So our motion to receive is not just a blanket thing. It's, we do look at these.
Okay, so that's a motion to approve. And Councillor Armstrong, you did a second. Did I see your hand? Or, okay. And all in favor? And that motion is carried as well. Correspondence for action, Town of Fort Erie capital gains tax. Councillor Armstrong?
Motion to receive.
Seconder?
Yep.
Councillor Franzen, all in favor? Township of Archipelago banning unencapsulated polyester polystyrene foam. Now, does anybody want to determine what that is? You want to ban that?
I think I know what that is. It's the small encapsulated items that are in flotation devices, many different types, like dock floats. There's all kinds of different things that have small
So they're the
pellets.
little pellets.
Yeah, and that's, once that's spread out through the water, it doesn't seem to ever deteriorate.
Okay, Councillor Armstrong?
Motion to support.
Okay, seconder? Councillor Franzen? And just to prove that, I used to use that as basis in the bottom of big planters. And after a number of years, I took it out and they were just as pristine as the day I put them in there. They never break down. Okay, Township of Archipelago, Bill 279, Environmental Protection. Yes,
Through you. You need to call for the vote and state the outcome.
okay. Vote to approve. And that is carried. Again, Township of Archipelago, Bill 279, Environmental Protection Amendment Act. Motion, please. Councillor Lamb
Motion to support.
okay. And Councillor Armstrong is the seconder. And all in favor? Motion is carried. Township of West Lincoln, review of cannabis licensing and enforcement.
Motion to receive.
Councillor Franzen is a motion to receive. Councillor Armstrong?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? That motion is carried. Bylaws, service agreement, TO2 2021. Motion, please. Councillor Lambshead,
Motion to approve.
Councillor Franzen, all in favor? Motion is carried. 2021-075, amend Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee terms of reference. Motion, Councillor Lambshead and Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? Motion is carried. Business arising out of a previous meeting. Councillor Armstrong?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I have two. The first one is to inquire what the status of the Dudney application is with regard to two things. One is the haul route agreement, and the second is the status of peer reviews of the studies that accompanied the application. And I'm not springing this on anybody. I've asked in advance, or let people know in advance that I was going to ask for this information, so it could be shared.
So who can speak to this, please?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, through you, Mayor Clarkson. I just wanted to provide the update regarding the peer reviews. Planning staff are in the process of finding the appropriate consultant to send the reports to for peer reviews. And we anticipate bringing forward to the next council meeting cost recovery agreement with Dudney Mountain. So we have the funds necessary if there's any back and forth going between the consultants regarding the peer review. So that process hasn't been completely, I guess, completed in terms of sending out the reports for peer reviews, but we are in the process of distributing them.
And the draft haul agreement? Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor.
In terms of the draft haul agreement, it's pretty well the same status. We've sent the information over to John Ewart, our solicitor, and I'm sure that the agreement is under review by the appropriate individuals, our solicitor, and also a consultant will be sending it to as well.
Excellent. Glad to hear we have another consultant looking at that. And my second question was with regard to the whole issue of docks on municipal unopened road allowances. We got started on that program last year. We got a late start, COVID hit. So really nothing was done in terms of removing docks that are sitting on municipal property adjacent to lakes or offering them a license of occupation as an alternative. So I'm just wondering what our implementation plan is for that for 2020. What year are we in? 2021.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's one of those projects through the pandemic we've kind of set aside. And as I mentioned to council, I believe in my report at the end of last year, we needed to revisit this particular a license of occupancy, because it's nice that we indicate that we're removing docks if someone doesn't come forward and agree with a license of occupation. But in doing that, where does this dock go? Who's taking the dock out? So there's still some work that staff have to do in order to make this process work correctly. So it's not a topic that has been forgotten. We just have it on the back burner, and we hope to get to it very shortly.
Great, thanks, Adele. I know that there's a lot of work going on in that department. I'm hoping that we can take some steps moving forward so the public will see that we've acted on their interests before the end of the summer. So thank you.
Adele, the question that I have on all of these peer reviews that we're doing on Dewdney, how many of these are necessary and how many of these are just something that they can take a look at and say, you know what, this is frivolous, and slap us with some, I don't know what you would call it, but like, I guess I'm concerned that at some point we're not going to be chastened because we've demanded more than what's in our mandate.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it is the municipality's policy to have these reports that are submitted for these applications to be peer reviewed. And the peer review could be lengthy or it could be very short in terms of the consultant that the municipality has requested to do the peer review may have no issue with the actual report, and it could be a very short letter that we are in agreement with the recommendations of the report. However, the peer reviewer is acting on behalf of the municipality and may be looking at actual concerns, maybe have additional questions from the original consultant preparing the report. So this is all part and parcel of the necessary steps taken in a planning application so we can give the best recommendations to council in order to make a decision.
Do we have any kind of a timeline attached to this?
Through Madam Mayor, there isn't any actual timeline. There may be some back and forth between the consultants, and that may take some time, but we're hoping to get the reports out as soon as possible in order to start the peer review process.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? And I think we need a motion to accept this, do we not? Yes?
Through you, there's no motions in this.
Nothing even there, okay. All right, business arising, oh, that's right, because it was your question. Business arising out of a previous meeting. Do we have anything, anybody? Yes.
I just have to ask a question. We passed that motion on the gypsy moth. Did we ask support from other municipalities on our concerns about the government engaging into a spraying operation?
Jesse?
Through you, the notice of motion was circulated as directed to the Ministry of Natural Resources, the County of Peterborough, and Dave Smith's office.
What process would be involved if we were to ask support of other municipalities in Southern Ontario?
Through you, I would assume we would have to go through another notice of motion process and include that in the resolution that was passed.
Okay.
But having said that, you can take that to the delegation at AMO, right?
Yeah, but that isn't until August.
No. Yes.
And if I could build on that, good point, Councillor Franson. If a copy went to the County of Peterborough, then perhaps our deputy mayor and mayor could support that when it comes up on the county council agenda, and get a letter of support from them at least.
Councillor Lamsey?
Yeah, I was thinking at that same instance, we could ask for some support from the other municipalities and at least our counties.
We're going to have to figure out some way to deal with this.
Yes.
Whether it's done by a blanket charge that the township takes over, or the municipality takes over and then allots out, or whatever, but this can't go on. So there's got to be some actions taken. It's interesting when we comment, they can't do this, they can't do that, but they are doing this other areas. Last week they sprayed in Brampton, and the individual homeowners were not asked to pay. They just got a letter saying you'll be spraying there on Tuesday or whatever, and they did it with dusters. So there are areas who are getting some results from this, and I'm probably getting, I would say 4 to 5 calls a day. And it's heartbreaking to listen to what people are going through. And at the end of the day, we're all going to go through it. We're just lucky some of us aren't there yet. Ron, you've been under this since it first started.
Oh, I know, it's wild.
And when I delivered Ron's agenda the other day, the driveway was covered with dirt. At little ones were anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to the full size big ones. Unlike other caterpillars, these things cause serious infections in a lot of people. A lot of people, they get like poison ivy, but some people actually blister from these things. So it's not like something that you're going to knock it off. And if you walk on them, like one lady walked through them, didn't realize what she had done, went to the hospital, and first of all, they thought she had COVID because it was one of those same types of reactions, but she had actually blistered from these things. So I don't know how we do it, but I do know that we have to investigate a situation for how we deal with these things. They're not just a pest.
No.
Just as a clarification, in Brampton, they're only spraying municipal properties.
Oh, is it? Yes. Okay.
They're advising neighbors that it's happening, but they
Of course,
will not spray trees on private property.
But they've got so much municipal stuff, it's going to float around anyway. Who had their hand up over there?
I had, just for a comment, is this program is nothing, I believe, that this municipality can deal with it internally, because the costs involved are just horrendous. I mean, it's just not a small swath of our municipality that's suffering under the gypsy moth. It's quite a large area. I know that it's in Halliburton County as well. You know, we've got a lot of land that's neighboring Halliburton County.
So Donna, when these, like, I think, is it Lennox or Lenark? One of them is sprayed early on. How did they handle the financing of that? It's the one, I think Zimmer Air that does this. And there was quite an article in one of the websites that I read that they did it, but they talked about the different municipalities that they were spraying. How was that conducted? Like, is that pay as you play? Is that something that was done by the municipality?
So through you, it's my understanding it was only municipal property and not private property. So I know Chelsea wasn't announced as a speaker today. If Chelsea's on there, she's our resident expert gypsy moth person. So she can answer that question. So are you there, Chelsea?
I am. Don't give me too much credit, but through you, Mayor Clarkson. So the research that I have done, a lot of these places that have performed the aerial spraying, they have annual monitoring of the gypsy moth. So they have a company such as Bioforest, seems to be a common one, and they will provide annual monitoring of the gypsy moth. So they will track different areas. So what Bioforest requires is for the township or the municipality to let them know where the concerns are of the gypsy moth. They will monitor that. They start as soon as the leaves start to fall off the trees in the fall, and then they can predict defoliation areas. I would assume that it's similar to what the MNRF does when they post their predicted defoliation areas on their website. They also do tracking of the gypsy moth and surveys to predict the defoliation. So Bioforest does this monitoring of it, and then the municipality can budget and determine where they think it's best appropriate to manage these areas. But the aerial spraying is done on municipal property. In the event that a municipal property was going to be treated with the aerial spray and it was going to mist onto an adjacent property owner, that is when approval or confirmation would have to be received from the adjacent property owner to participate.
Do we have any idea what the costing is of this?
So the monitoring of the gypsy moth, it varies. It would depend on the area that they are going to be monitoring, but it could be anywhere up to $70,000 a year. And
then what about the actual spraying?
So the actual spraying, sorry, through you, the actual spraying can be anywhere from $400 to $900 per hectare.
Okay.
If I may add, I looked into this for our cottage association. Currently, we are not having a problem with gypsy moths, but I'm alerting our members at our AGM that we may need to pre-order for next year for that reason. And there are discounts, Chelsea, so it's $375 per acre. But if it's a greater area, then they add another $100 per acre. So I'm quite certain that if we had a large area, it would get discounted significantly. But it's not trivial when you've got a large area to spray. And the other thing to consider is that over half of our township is actually Crown land. So we'd almost need some sort of agreement with MNR that they would do theirs if we do ours, or else we have this problem of mixing and migration.
Councillor,
I did look up at Wikipedia about the area of our municipality. It was somewhere around 323 square miles.
But by the looks of this, then, if what you're saying is if a person were to identify their lot, that they could probably order this for next year at a cost of $375 if it's an acre.
Yes.
Is that what I'm gathering?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe what we need to do is let people know that they could book that for another year. Like I've got people who want to sell, they just want to get out. And one fellow, his car was covered. He actually cleaned off the windshield, went to a car wash and blew the stuff off. Like it's incredible what people are dealing with.
Yep.
And you know, they say oak trees. Donna, you probably went up and looked at that yesterday.
Yes.
But they've stripped pine, they've stripped everything. And they'll move, like 2 or 3 days ago, going down 6 Foot Bay Road, we had none. They're all the way down to the golf course now, just in a couple of days.
If I may, I would suggest that we have Chelsea do a little more legwork on this and speak with, we know there's one company, there may be others, but there's a window within which they will accept bookings and there may be discount if we do more. So perhaps Chelsea, if you don't mind, sorry, could, through you, Donna, could put together something that we could provide homeowners as an information package for what they could do for next year. And there's another approach, which is not aerial spraying, but you had it done, I think, Deputy Mayor.
Well, Logan, what
localized.
they did was drill holes and then pour it, and then it would go up through.
Right.
And then instantly kill them. So, but that was too late by the time I decided to do it. So I did get them to come and spray my trees, which is a lot cheaper, that's for sure. But then we go up 25 feet or so, you know, so that's the main leads are higher than that, so.
So I think the direction is, we've told them what we can't do. Let's put together a little information package about what they could do, even if it's not this year, at least going forward.
Well, I think that's a good idea, because then these people can go ahead with their neighbors and maybe get a half a dozen neighbors together, because if only one person does it, with the way these things move, you'll spray today, they'll move in tomorrow.
I do believe there was some place up at Stony Lake. I think there was some lot owners there that had several lots done, I believe. And I think it was $300 and some or something per lot or something like that. It cost them.
No, I think that's a really good idea. Come up with a definite plan, then we can contact people and say, you know, if you want to get a hold of your neighbors or something, get your orders in this fall. And give them some sort of a sense that next year they'll be able to survive.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, many of the inquiries that I have received, I provided them with an MNRF fact sheet, and there's also a link provided through the MNRF that provides a lot of information regarding control measures and the regulation and monitoring of the gypsy moth. And it also speaks to the life cycle and when it's best to try to deal with that issue at the different life cycles of the gypsy moth. So that information has been provided to residents when they inquire. It's also been posted onto our social media. We've also posted a video on showing somebody putting burlap onto the tree trunk and how that can be an opportunity to try and reduce the gypsy moth issue.
We went around this morning and did everything with saran wrap because it's supposed to do the same thing as the burlap. Is there anything in there about pricing, like $375 an acre, sign up this fall, anything like that in there? Or is it just more websites to go on and get general information? I think we need to be specific for people.
So through you, Mayor Clarkson, the costing that I received was when I spoke to a representative from Zimmer Air Services a while back. That was the costing that they provided. But it's my understanding that they are the only company that provides the aerial spraying. Anyone else would have to contact a reputable insect control service provider if they wanted to have another means done to try to help with the gypsy moth issue.
Now with the aerial, what's the minimum space? Because you can't go up there probably and just spray an acre from the air.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson. Yes, that's correct. So I'm not sure what the minimum property requirements would be, but I can definitely inquire. But there would be the issue of misting, which is why I think the MNRF has not committed to spraying, because our Crown land is highly fragmented by private land, and it would make it difficult to ensure that the spray does not mist onto adjacent landowners' properties who haven't provided the consent to receive the chemical treatment.
Well, they didn't ask us to consent the last time, they just sprayed us. Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor. I think again, we can't process this much further here, but I think the takeaway is to request that Chelsea through Donna put together an information package that's very specific that will help our own homeowners know what their options are available to them, and mostly for next year. So I think it's a takeaway from this meeting and a little work project so that we can give them something more specific.
Yep. Well, one of the things we need there is the minimum for spraying, the minimum amount of acreage, so that an individual doesn't think they can get their own done. So that way they can get out and talk to their neighbors and see just what the appetite is. Okay, are you okay there for your, Chelsea? Did you get everything you need?
I am good, thank you.
Thank you. Any other business arising from a previous meeting? Okay, notices of motion. Nope, I think we've all been quiet this time. Information items. So we are saddened to announce the resignation of Marlis Kirkman from Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee. We'd like to thank her for hard work and dedication. Marlis was one of the founding members of this group. So thank you, Marlis. Anne, have you got an information item to share?
I do, thank you. Through you, Mayor Clarkson, for Council's information, the Fire and Emergency Services Department has identified several assets as surplus to the department's needs. In accordance with the Disposal of Municipal Assets policy, the surplus items will be advertised for public auction on the GovDeals site, with the auction running from June 16th to June 30th. Information will also be posted on the municipal website. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody want to comment on that? Okay. Liaison reports for external boards and committees. Do we have any reports there? Any other information items? I think we've dealt with the gypsy moth, which I think is it's the big thing on everybody's mind, unless there's something else. Okay, council is going into a closed meeting to discuss personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees and labor relations or employee negotiations. Anyone that is listening or viewing the electronic meeting may remain on the line for when council rises from closed. We need a motion to go into closed, please. Councillor Lambshead and Councillor Armstrong. All in favor? Motion is carried. Motion to rise, please. Councillor Lambshead, Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? And business arising from closed, adoption of the minutes. Regular and special closed sessions, June 1st, 2021. Motion, Councillor Franzen, Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor. That motion is carried. Adoption of the confirming bylaw, 19.1. Motion, please. Councillor Lambshead, Councillor Armstrong, all in favor. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Everybody's. Thank you.
Correct. I'll just need a mover, seconder, and.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Windover and Councillor Lambshead, all in favor. Carried.